Hello, YouTube. It's time to look at the Chinese space program in general and also the lunar program in particular. And the first source we will look to is Sergei, that bright Russian scientist, a graduate of the top military space academy, now a leading engineer and programmer, who was involved with the ISS and the Mir Station projects, the GLONASS, and other special programs of his country. Most likely, he also worked in the little-known Russian Space Intelligence Agency. Sergei is very bright and has immense knowledge and a cool sense of humor, and if he is interested in certain subjects, I think there is a definite reason for it. Recently, the state-owned Chinese conglomerate CASC, this is the de facto equivalent of the Chinese National Space Agency, held a presentation of plans for main programs for the People's Republic of China, including manned flights to the moon. As usually happens in such cases, the presentation was intended primarily for the media and social networks to open the program of landing on the moon of that Asian country for the 100th time, despite the fact that it has officially been known since about 2018. So let's see what's new in it. To begin with, let's remember that China, or rather CASC, plans to carry out manned mission with a landing on the moon in about 2030. To do this, it is planned to use a new generation manned spacecraft under development, a lunar module, and a CZ-5G rocket. The mission plan includes two CZ-5G launches. One rocket should launch a manned spacecraft into space. The second is the lunar module. Both vehicles will separately go into lunar orbit. After arriving at the destination, the manned spacecraft with three taikonauts, as they refer to astronauts, will dock with the lunar module. After that, the latter will descend to the surface of our satellite with two crew members. Having completed its mission, the lunar module will again ascend to the circumlunar orbit, and it will redock with the spacecraft, which will head towards our planet. That was a simple plan. Something has changed, and work is underway. However, some interesting details can be seen in the new CASC presentation. On the one hand, it is confirmed that the CZ-5G rocket will have a slightly different design. The new generation ship also has serious design changes compared to the prototype that flew in 2020. And curiously enough, its appearance now looks more like the Russian spaceship Orel Eagle than the original version. The service module has also been redesigned and has other main engines, and the solar panels are located perpendicular to the usual configuration. The capsule is connected to the service module due to the expansion of the latter with a maximum diameter of 5 meters. Something similar is used in the design of NASA's Orion spacecraft. In addition, the docking unit does not have a retractable aerodynamic cover, like the Crew Dragon or the prototype launched in 2020. Another feature is that the capsule will not be protected by an aerodynamic covers during takeoff, like the Orion spacecraft. Excuse me. It will be exposed to the outside, as in Crew Dragon or Starliner. As for the lunar module, the presentation shows us a medium-sized module, much larger than the mini module that we saw in 2018. However, this is not a new design. This is the same module that was introduced in 2020. Although at first glance it seems that it has only one stage. In fact, it uses another stage. It will be used to launch into the lunar orbit and descend to the surface. It will separate shortly before landing on the moon. The stage has 4 engines with a thrust of 7,500 newtons and 2 round solar panels. The module can accommodate 2 crew members and a rover. And as we can see, the Chinese manned lunar program is gradually taking shape. If everything goes according to plan, there are only 8 years left before we will see the taikonauts walking on the lunar surface. So those are the Russian concerns. And now let's look at the open Chinese sources. And we learned that China is hoping a rocket that can send people to the moon will be ready to launch by 2027. The head of the country's biggest space contractor says the rocket will be able to carry a lunar orbiter and lander for a 3-person mission. Other planned Chinese missions include collecting samples from Mars, deep space exploration, and a search for habitable planets outside the solar system. And China is hoping to send astronauts to the moon by around 2030. China may launch a new vessel capable of carrying its first crewed mission to the moon as early as 2027. And that's according to the head of the country's biggest space contractor, Wu Yangsheng, chairman of China's Aerospace Science and Technology Corporation, CASC I mentioned before, told a youth forum in China that this new generation of rockets, sometimes referred to under codename 921 rocket, would be able to carry a 3-person orbiter and a moon lander that would be able to carry 2 crew members. Wu also revealed other details about China's space ambitions in his speech, which was published on the CASC's website and outlined plans to explore other planets and even travel beyond the solar system to look for places that could support human life. The plans include more Chang'e missions, which aim to bring samples from the far side of the moon back to Earth in 2026, an environmental and resource survey at the south pole of the moon the following year, and establish a research station also at the south pole in 2028. Chinese space authorities have indicated that they hope to send astronauts to the moon by 2030, but have not committed to a specific date. Wu also said that there were plans to send a probe to collect samples from Mars and bring them back to Earth within the next 10 to 15 years. Other objectives include launching a deep space probe around 2025 to explore near-Earth asteroids and main belt comets. See my videos attached. The URLs will be attached in the description to this video. Why the Chinese want to look at the asteroids and the possible presence of alien life and the asteroids and the observers. It's very interesting. And of course, it's not being written about. I have not seen too much, but you should pay attention. This is very interesting of what they know and what they want to explore. And of course, there are also plans that China has to send missions to explore Jupiter and its moons, Uranus, the Sun, and the edge of the solar system. It's exciting. An exploration project for planets suitable for human habitation outside the solar system, codenamed Sound Search, was planned to start in 2030, according to Wu. China is also developing a low-cost and reusable vessel along the lines of the space shuttle. Wu said the aim was to support a regular space transport system, which he compared to high-speed trains and commercial planes. Our goal is to promote China to become a leading space power by 2030 and fully establish China as a world space power by 2045, he said. The 921 rocket, a probable reference to the Long March CZ-5G rocket that Sergei told us about. Well, that rocket, 921, will be able to carry a payload of 70 tons into a lower Earth orbit and one of 25 tons to the moon. The 921 rocket will use many of the mature technologies from the current heavy lift rocket CZ-5, including its engines. CASC will also continue developing its more powerful super heavy lift Long March 9, which will become China's largest space capacity rocket and a key pillar for its deep space missions. The three-stage CZ-9 is designed to carry a 150-ton payload into the low Earth orbits, of 50 tons to the moon and up to 44 tons to Mars. The new hydrogen-oxygen engines are also being developed for the three-stage rocket. In October, the CASC said that some ground tests for the third-stage engine had been carried out successfully. It's not easy to get information out from China, so when we get something concrete, pay attention to it. I think it's very important. In manned cosmonautics, or manned space science, the People's Republic of China shows the pace of development that is practically inaccessible to other countries. At the beginning of the century, China became the third country in the world to launch a man into space. This was done with the help of the Shenzhou spacecraft, confusingly similar to the Russian Soyuz, except that its dimensions are slightly larger, and therefore the taikonauts have much more free space inside. Simultaneously with the manned flights, China began to develop a multi-module orbital station and create a promising new generation spacecraft. A few years later, information appeared about the beginning of work on the CZ-7 Super Heavy launch vehicle, and for the first time the date of a possible landing on the moon was announced, and that was to be 2028. So there you have it. Look back. On October 8, 1956, China's first rocket missile development agency, the Fifth Research Institute, was established by China's Ministry of National Defense. Henceforth, developments in space in China have received a further push to develop a crewed space with the Crew program by 1967, which was in response to the news that the Soviet Union and the United States were both pursuing their own lunar programs. With the death of Stalin in 1953 and the rise of Khrushchev in 1958, relations between the Soviet Union and China deteriorated further, resulting in the Sino-Soviet split in 1960. Henceforth, China would pursue development of nuclear weapons and space technologies vehicles independently. Since its inception in the late 1950s and its reformation in the early 1990s, China's space program has made some very impressive accomplishments. But as with other space programs, certain missions stand out as being of particular importance. The Chinese National Space Agency is one of the fastest growing space agencies in the world today. From its relatively humble beginnings more than 60 years ago, it has come to be one of the biggest contenders in the modern day space race. And the way things are, I think that China may prevail and continue with its bold missions, incomparable, of course, to the Russian or even the American space programs. So we need to see. And I'll keep my eyes open on more developments that China has in the outer space, but also in the oceans of our planet. It's very interesting. And if you can support my research, you will find the links on how to do it in the description to this video. Please like my videos, please subscribe to my channel, and please kindly tell others. Thank you.